Thank you.
This is so fun.
This is fun. Thank you for coming here.
My pleasure.
Yeah, you're the best. Hold on, before we do it, I'm just going to put this down for you. I love spending time with you. I find that you and I organically just meet up and we just go there, but it's so natural and we just talk about some deep things.
Yes, there's people like that.
But there's a respect there, and I don't know, I've learned so much from you just sitting down.
Thank you.
I'm thinking of our time we randomly ran into each other one morning and we got a coffee. And we talked about so many topics most people don't even broach, and we just hugged after, and it was so lovely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny because one of the first times I met you was at like our youngest boys, like pre-K.
Yeah.
And you said something very wise around like the pressure that we as parents, some parents feel around like academic. I don't remember exactly what you said, but I was in like full like intensity academic mode. And you were so like laid back about it, but not in a I don't care way, more of like everyone will be fine.
Yeah.
And it like stayed with me. It was one of the first times I met you, and I was like, that's a mindset I wouldn't mind having right now.
That's really kind, and maybe I needed to hear that because I'm in the full high school mode with Ella, so I could.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So that's a nice reminder.
That was 2 years ago. So.
You know what it is? It's like, and I think you can agree with that. We did agree. You do the work, you work hard, and then you have to trust where they end up will be okay, because what we as parents instill helps them through any situation.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And you also talked about like while studying is important, but also kind of developing them to have a creative spirit too.
Sure.
So they can become entrepreneurs. Like that was something you mentioned. I was like, that's true. Cause I've never, even though I'm a business owner, I never thought of things that way, because I grew up in like a very like work hard, go to a good college, get a good corporate job.
Sure.
That was like the mindset I grew up in. But
Sure.
I'm skipping ahead.
No, I love this. Yeah, it's so hard, especially in a competitive city like New York City. It's really easy to. There's so many offerings, and you got to keep going. But I used to think like, are we the best at everything? Why do we expect our kids to be the best at everything? There are niches for us, and I find sometimes some of the best thinking happens during those bored moments for kids, where they can think and be creative and play. You know?
And if they're constantly thinking that they have to be the best, then, I mean, hopefully you develop a growth mindset in them. But a lot of times they're just gonna decide like, I'm not best at this, so I shouldn't even do it.
Right, the perfectionist
What
mindset.
is best? Like, who's best?
Right. Wow, that is a specific mind. We didn't even have this to talk about. You're right. Yeah. Those kids are just doing things to be the best, and then they're not taking chances, which is not the entrepreneurial mindset.
Right.
Right. You want kids to be comfortable failing and then to keep trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll talk about this, but I'm on the other side of it, where I'm in the minds of like adults now, and how they're thinking and how they're taking risks or not taking risks, how they're failing or succeeding. And so it's interesting, like as a parent, you try not to apply like some of the situations at work as a coach.
I was going to ask you, how do you not apply?
I have to work very hard to like create division, because I have to be like, okay, that's not my parenting style, so that doesn't mean that's going to be that person's experience.
Right.
But it's like what you see on the other side of it is that any human being is going to have things that worked or didn't work in their youth for them. Right. And as a parent, you just can't control for all of it. Right. And so you have to, one of my really good friends that is way more laid back than me, she lives in Amsterdam, so. Oh, of course. She's got that vibe. Of course. But we both were born in Russia. So my parents immigrated to the States when I was 6.5. Wow. And she like grew up in Russia, went to university in Europe, and stayed married actually. Her husband is Italian. She married an Italian guy, and they live in Amsterdam. Wow. But she's like the opposite of me. I'm so type A and intense, and she's laid back and joyful, very hardworking, incredibly accomplished, but just like laid back. That's so interesting, based on where you guys ended up. Even though we're both like Soviet Union girls, definitely, at the same, born a few months apart. Our parents are friends. And she tells me, she's like, just make sure you have enough money for them to go to therapy. And I was like, she's like, because no matter what you do, they will need it. We're imperfect people. How are we? Of course we're going to mess up, right? I would like to think that I won't mess them up. But. Well, I always think apologizing is really powerful.
Apologizing when you are wrong. I think
as a parent,
generations prior had a tough time or just
Yeah.
didn't. I think there's power in that. I see that in my kids' eyes when I apologize. They're like, oh, okay.
I know I struggle with it. I know there's power in it. I just, again, I wasn't raised that way.
Sure, right. A lot of us weren't.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So probably Italian parents and Russian parents have some similarities in that regard.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're a work in progress. But you said you're from Russia.
Yeah. So
you
I was
came
born
here,
in Russia.
And you came here when you were 6.5.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So my parents. So I have an older brother who's 13 when we immigrated, and I was 6.5.
Okay.
So we lived in Moscow, Russia, which at the time was Soviet Union. Like we came before the fall of the Soviet Union. And yeah, we immigrated here when I was 6.5.
Where did you end up?
We immigrated to Philly. So I grew up in Philly.
Okay.
And then I came to New York for college.
I'm not going to sing the Boys to Men song.
Thank you.
Okay. But it's such a good one. So you came here in college. Did you meet your husband here?
I met him in college. Yeah, I met him at NYU.
Okay, nice. You are a city girl.
Yeah. And he was born in the Ukraine. So all Soviet Union, like same but different.
Yeah.
But back then it was like all the same language, same government.
How did you find each other?
On the bus, those NYU purple buses that drive around. I don't know if they still drive around.
And you just happen to have similar background. You met on a bus?
So this is like a whole story. He sat down next to me on this college bus because NYU has dorms all over the city.
Right.
They're not like all in one place.
Right.
So they have to bus kids around. And my story is that the bus was empty and he sat down next to me, which who does that? And his story is the bus was packed and he sat down next to me because it was only
funny.
so. We had this whole video on our wedding, where we told the story. People thought we genuinely have different stories.
I think we all have different stories. That's why I'm laughing. Why is that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Everyone sees things through their own lens.
Yep.
So, but when he sat down next to me, I just knew, he was Russian or like Soviet. I'll call it Soviet.
Right.
Because he just had that look. He had that like Brooklyn Russian immigrant look.
Okay, there's a look I didn't know.
I mean, I know I had the radar for that, and so I didn't want to turn and be like, I'm Russian too, because who does that? That's so weird. So I called someone who spoke Russian and spoke on the phone, and then got off the phone, and he was like, oh, I'm Russian too, and we became friends, and we were friends through college, and only started dating at the end of college. So we were friends first, which was fun.
So do you have similar faith?
Yeah, we're both Jewish.
Culture. Okay,
Yeah.
Was that important to you?
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For faith and culture, both one or the other?
Back then, it was more of like an identity because the reason we came to the States was because of the rise in anti-Semitism. I mean, there was always anti-Semitism in the Soviet Union, but it was really extreme around the years that there was a lot of, the Soviet Union was falling apart. So anytime there's any disruption in a country, seems that anti-Semitism is on the rise. So there was a lot of threats, and we were in the capital in Moscow. So my mom was like, we're getting out of here. And so I grew up with, grandfathers that fought in World War II against the Nazis and liberated concentration camps. So I had that as like a history that I grew up with. And plus the fact that my parents kind of made this big sacrifice, left their homeland to give us opportunity to be in a place where Jews were accepted and had opportunity in a way that Jews didn't have in the Soviet Union. So I think I just wanted to respect their commitment to my future.
Yes.
And my dad would say to me, like, when you marry someone, there's so many differences that you just bring into a marriage, just in general, that if you can minimize the differences, it'll make your life easier.
Yeah, I agree. It's what's the foundational?
Yeah.
What are the foundationally important things to you?
Values. And so I had very core like Jewish values, and so, but I have family members that are not Jewish, and we love them, and they're just as much family.
Yes.
So it wasn't like I couldn't marry Jewish, but it just mattered to me. It was important to me. But that's not like, I think we were friends first.
I love that.
And so I think I knew him as like a human.
Yeah.
And I really valued him as a human.
Yeah.
And actually when there was clearly like chemistry and that something was blossoming, I was terrified because I was like, we are such good friends. I don't want to lose that.
And you now have 3 children together, twins.
Yeah,
twins that are older. Yeah.
Twins that are almost 7 and an older one that's almost 12.
12. So 12 years old. Are you discussing bar mitzvah? Okay. Can you explain what a bar mitzvah is to those that may not be familiar?
Bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah for a girl is basically kind of becoming an adult, like an official moment of becoming an adult. It's done a million different ways, actually.
Yeah.
In the U.S., there's you study and you read from the Torah. Usually it's like every week there's a different part of the Torah that is read, and so the bar bat mitzvah girl will read part of that, make a prayer, kind of lead the service. So it's a significant experience because here you are as a child, kind of leading a service to an entire congregation. Right. And then a lot of people here have a big party. But it's not always done that way.
I know.
Like some people will travel.
Yeah.
I would like to be able to go to Israel for my son's bar mitzvah. We'll see.
That's special. Yeah.
We'll see how safe it is.
You know what I love about that? Moments marked in time. So that is a moment that, that is part of your culture and history that you mark. You are now a man, essentially.
Yeah, he becomes a man, exactly.
I love that. I wish
like, so
other
for boys,
religions...
you have to be, if you do it, like, you don't have to do it this way. The nice thing about I think, in Judaism, you can there's flexibility around how you do it, but if you follow, like, the hardcore rules, you have to be 13, then you have the bar mitzvah. Yeah. For girls, it's 12.
Right.
So interesting that they allow girls to become women earlier.
Sense. They're more mature.
We mature earlier.
That's really special. So that's what's happening. Is he prepping for it?
Yeah. So for now, it's very interesting. He has like over a year. Yeah. So he doesn't really have to study like his Torah portion yet, but he's kind of learning ethics, values, what it means to be Jewish, what it means to be a man.
Yes.
It's really funny because right now they're studying Shabbat and like the day of rest. What it means, what the rules about it are, and what he's learning is how he has to help his mom prepare for Shabbat.
We may take Shabbat over in our home too. I'm really
so he's now
that.
Like the past couple of weeks, he's been, how can I help you set the table, this and that, and I'm like,
we go to school with many Jewish families. We live in a city. I grew up on Long Island. Many Jewish families. I loved learning about it and then comparing it with my religion and how there are similarities and my kids are doing that now too. They're amazed that they know stories that their Jewish friends know and they're able to find commonalities. I think it's so special. I think that's why Aaron and I live here for the
the diversity.
Oh,
yes,
and we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
Not as important, almost as important. Your kids, all 3 go to 3 different schools. How are you doing 3 different schools in New York City? No car. You're not using a car in the morning. No. So what do you do? And then you're getting yourself out there.
I mean, I'm really fortunate. First of all, I think it's a real luxury to be able to have. I mean, it's a headache to have 3 different schools, 3 different parent bodies, and so on, do 3 different schedules. But it's also a luxury. Like part of it is a choice. So I'm blessed to have that.
You have the choice,
but the schedule really works out. So my older one gets himself to school on his own. He takes the crosstown bus.
So he's 12.
Yeah, he's 11. He's not 12 yet.
And he can take the crosstown bus alone. That's mature and independent of an 11-year-old in New York City.
I guess, but again, grew up in a different place where my brother was like taking himself all over Moscow at a very young age without cell phone, without trackable things, right?
Yes.
So, and I remember my mom standing on the balcony watching him get off the bus and walk home.
It's funny you say that. Most parents that sit here don't have as much independence as kids in New York City do now, which is more normal. You grew up differently.
Well, I didn't. Actually,
your brother did?
My brother, because he was 13 when we came here, so like
he was older.
He kind of came right after his bar mitzvah, funny enough, which he did get to have in Moscow, which is very rare, and it was not a big party, and it was like in hush hush, and we had to hide it.
Wow.
But yeah, so he had a lot of independence, and when I came here, we already lived kind of in more of a suburb, so there was a lot of being driven around. But I did do some walking. like from
Okay.
school
That's cool.
home, which was like a 10-minute walk,
Yeah.
which again, like kids didn't do.
No, but here, so he's getting himself off to school,
Yeah.
and are you guys splitting the twins?
No, it's
okay.
again, it's like so fortunate. The morning's great because Evie's bus is 30 minutes before Ben has to get dropped off.
Oh,
So we have
that's
so much time.
amazing.
Ben and I go to coffee.
Yeah. Oh, that's so sweet.
So like we go to
That's
Limelin
really
all
cool.
the time. Yeah.
Are there cultural activities you and your family enjoy in the city or find important?
Yeah. So I feel like we don't use the city enough. Like I always see how much you're doing with your kids in the city, and I'm always like, oh, I'm failing as a mom right now.
No, stop. We go through waves.
Yeah.
We're at the park, or then we
Yeah.
do a fun activity. Yeah, it depends on how much energy I have.
So I'm going to give you the honest answer, and then I'm
Yes,
going to give you like
please.
the if I was in my best mom answer.
Give us the honest. We love honesty.
The honest is we spend a lot of time in this neighborhood, or a little bit lower, and
Upper East Side.
Upper East Side, yeah, Upper East Side,
Yeah.
and we go to Central Park. We go to Carl Schultz. Obviously,
Yeah.
we're
Park family.
yeah. We just like
Special.
the kids. I try not to take them out to eat too much. I kind of feel like it's important to just like cook and eat at home and save up, but they just love going out to eat. And right now we're in that like fun time where they're trying new things.
Oh, wow.
Even if they don't like it, they'll be like,
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
I make it a fun thing. I'm like, okay, let's try it. Let's see what
Yes.
flavors we're into. And even the little ones are getting into it.
What better place in New York than New York City to try?
Exactly, and
new
like I'm trying to
place?
explain to them all the different like
fun.
places and countries it's from. So
Yes.
that's kind of like the cultural thing we do. But
I think that's great.
we
do the same thing. We were at
Yeah.
a diner yesterday.
yeah, there you go. They have all the cultures on one menu.
Oh, that was nice of you. Yeah.
But I love going to museums, obviously, and we have gotten recently into the habit on Saturdays, shutting our phones off and going to services.
Love that. Are
And
you part of a temple?
Yeah, yeah, we're part of a temple, and it's really
Love that.
it's kind of really refreshing because we're always on, and then you really have to disconnect. You have to
Yes.
turn and they have kind of different age group events. So the kids have something, we have
Special.
something, and kind of
They
nice.
said, I don't know if you read the book, The Anxious Generation.
Oh, you told me about it. I haven't read
Okay,
it yet.
it's based on kids and what what cell phones have done, the
Yeah.
rise in depression and all
Yeah.
that. And they said, what do kids need? Young kids, teenagers for a more well-rounded life, and one of them is that community.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that community is,
Yeah.
our community in the Upper East Side, I'm sure, but also
Yeah.
Temple provides a different kind of community for the kids as well.
It's different, and we're with my brother's family, so they see their
I
cousins.
love that.
Yeah, and it's tough because of the 3 schools, they all have their own different communities, and they don't have those communities together.
It's not intertwined.
So that is like the one community where
Love that.
all the generations kind of know each other.
Yeah.
So we have that, which is
Yeah,
nice. But it's busy time. I don't know if you have this experience, but every weekend I've like each school has something, and I have to pick.
Yeah.
Which is such a bummer.
It's hard.
I don't want to have to pick which fall fest we go to or which Halloween party we go to. We're fortunate to have 3 different ones that we can
There's
go
a
to.
lot of fall festivals going on.
I know, but only one kid will be happy. And then I feel like I'm failing everyone.
It's hard. 3 is tricky. We have 3 kids going to 3 different schools next year. Next year
Wait,
will
really?
be 3. Yes.
Oh, shoot.
We'll
Is
have
that your first time
elementary,
going through
yeah,
that?
elementary, middle, and then high school. And then we also do the church thing on Sundays, and that kind of balances out.
Do they have friends there?
Yes, and there's activities, and there's a youth group for my daughter who's older, which I think is great
I can't
midweek.
believe she's going to high school next year.
I know. Time is like speeding up. I sound like that cliche. But it's real. I think it really helps having community outside of home and
Right.
in the area. I think it's really, really important.
Yeah.
New York City is loud. Do you have any routines or practices where you balance out that loud? It could be anything. I'm hearing all sorts of answers.
So, what we now have a little place we can escape to outside of the city.
Where is
which
that?
On Long Island, actually.
Yeah.
And it's really far out, and it's by like where the farms are.
Nice.
And when you make that turn into that area, you literally see a field of green and then a little tiny white farmhouse in the distance. And it
Is that
sends
yours?
a cue. No,
Oh, okay.
no.
Okay.
It's just like where you turn.
Yeah.
But it sends like a cue that it's time to relax. So right
Yes.
now, like if I needed to really zen out, I would just go there.
Yeah, you're lucky to have the
and this
busyness
is
of
a
the
new
city.
development, and it is
that.
a very lovely escape.
And do you spend your summers
Yeah,
there
I
as
try.
well?
Yeah, as much as we can. I mean, obviously, I have to be here for work too.
Right.
But as much as we can. But here, I love just walking. So on like Carl Schultz along the water
So
is
the park
really nice.
on the Upper East Side near the East
Yeah,
River?
exactly.
Yeah.
I
is
think
nice.
Central Park is so amazing. Like it's so peaceful, walking around the
walks.
reservoir.
Yeah.
Walks.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, it's walks. Yeah.
Do you worry about daily safety for you and or your kids?
If you asked me a year and a half ago, I would say no.
And why now?
Well, after October 7th, the rise of anti-Semitism is like significant.
Yes.
So we're not gonna hide who we are. So it just also seems it's not even Jews. I just think there's a lot of really hurt people, really misguided people out there. I'm not sure the city is well protected at the moment. But I don't let myself go there for too much. Like I think we love living here. We made the choice to live here. I take the subway, I take the bus.
Okay.
I'm fine with my older one taking the bus and the subway by himself.
You're just aware, and you probably give some
I just
advice of what to look out for and be.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting characters, and I'm just a little bit more like alert. For my son, he'll sometimes come home. He'll be like, "Oh, that was a tough bus ride," and we joke about it because there's specific people that he keeps seeing.
Yeah.
There's like the one guy that constantly says the same thing over and over again.
Are you saying crazy people he
Yes,
sees or nice people?
No,
Got it.
No, I don't know. He probably only notices the crazy ones.
Yes.
There's like the crazy guy who talks on the bus ride.
Yeah.
And, so now we kind of have a joke about it. But
I will say bus rides feel safer to me
than the subway.
for the kids,
Yes,
right? Because they're
agreed.
above, and then there are a lot of amazing people in the city that would would be
Yeah, I don't think much about it, but I also I remember when I first came to the city, and I was going to NYU.
Yeah.
And my friends would tell me, like all my other college friends would be like, do not walk through Washington Square Park after 10 p.m. or whatever.
Right.
And I was like, I don't want to have to walk around. And I'd walk through, and they would be like, Helen, you can't. We know you're from a quiet little suburb. And these were my Brooklyn friends. And they were like, even my husband, who's now my husband, who was friends, he'd be like, you can't walk through that park after a certain period of time.
Yeah. It's funny. I used to be the same way. I call it, I don't know, you're young, you're
also
invincible.
They grew up in, again, my husband grew up in Brooklyn. He was mugged multiple times before the age of 12.
Right.
He says, he's like, I got my Walkman stolen 3 times on the train,
Yes, my husband lived in Harlem for a little while in his 20s. He mugged, yeah.
And they're just more alert and aware.
Right.
So, and I came from this quiet little town in Philadelphia.
I have to say, post-COVID, there was a big change too.
Yeah.
I feel where you have to be, I'm not going to walk down the street. It's a little quiet and it's 9:30 at night. I'm going to find people to walk,
Yeah. I still don't make that wise choice. I'm just more alert.
I feel like you could take someone on though if they try to mess with you. That's the ultimate compliment.
Especially if I'm with my kids. If I'm with my kids, there's no stopping me.
Of course.
Yeah.
You'll do anything.
Yeah, for sure.
You are an executive and leadership coach.
Yeah.
How did that come about? You worked in finance for many years prior. So how did you make that switch into that entrepreneurial, owning a business and going this route?
Well, thank you for asking, because I love talking about my business.
Great.
It's so fun for
Good.
me.
I want to talk about it too.
So I have been an executive coach. I've had my business for over 10 years now. So I worked on Wall Street, on a trading floor, initially one of the few women on the trading floor, all men. I worked at Lehman Brothers. Which
you probably could write a book about the floor.
Yes, and I should, but I'm too busy now.
Fair.
3 schools, a business, 3 kids.
Yeah.
But someday, but working on the trading floor, really intense. It was exactly the experience I needed to have right out of school. But, about 8 years into the job, I kind of looked at my bosses and was like, I don't really want to do that in 20 years.
Sure.
They were going out, the way to make a lot of money or their life was basically going out every night drinking with their clients. Mm-hmm. And that's not every Wall Street person, but that was the culture. That was also the career from where I sat. Sure. It's still the culture, by the way. Okay. They're trying to shift it, but it's still the culture, and it will continue to be the culture for a portion of that business. But I learned a lot. I got to work with really smart, really incredible people, and one of the reasons I wanted to stay on Wall Street was because I really appreciated the people I was working with. They were very smart. They were risk takers. Those people that just get it really quickly. Yeah, smart. And also there's this perception that everyone who works on Wall Street is just greedy, and I don't know if this is the perception that everyone has, but I think, thanks to Wolf of Wall Street, there's
I was thinking of that. Thanks for bringing it up.
You're greedy and you're only in for yourself and you're willing to take everyone down. And when you get into the industry, you realize that people are incredible and they're generous and they're interested. And one of the many reasons that they're in finance is that they want to constantly be learning. And to be good in finance, you really do need to constantly be learning. You need to learn new industries. You need to understand why the markets are changing. You need to understand where the economy is going. You need to understand politics and geopolitics. It's fascinating. And yes, there's some bad characters there too.
Anywhere.
But so I really loved the people, but I did not love the function of what I was doing, which was just, pushing a product and then having to go out drinking so that I could get the sale tomorrow. That didn't feel like that was how I wanted to be spending my time. So I started to really explore, and I had a hedge fund client, who was really just miserable at work. And he called me and he was telling me about this, and I was talking to him, and I got off the phone with him and I started to Google stress management and hedge funds. Those were the two things I put in, and I found all these articles written by executive coaches. And I was like, what is this? What is an executive coach? I swear to you, I had no idea. I didn't know where the HR office was.
No, I don't know if a ton would.
Okay, I should explain it.
Yes. No, but keep going. I like this. How evolved.
Yes, I will tell you, but I will quickly give you the short definition so I don't lose our audience, is what my son called it. He said, well, you're like a business therapist, right, Mom? And I was like, pretty much. There's nuances, but it's very true, because you're basically, as an executive coach, I am basically partnered up with my client and or team of clients or an organization to help elevate you. Right. I always envision a rocket ship, and when the astronaut is going off to space, they're feeling this pressure on their chest, and they have to be physically very, very strong to be able to handle the pressure. And that's what a lot of executives and a lot of leaders and a lot of investors in finance, and I don't just work with finance, but they're feeling this pressure. And I envision that I'm with them for that ride, kind of giving them the support, the perspective, sometimes challenging them, and then we get to a place where we break through the pressure, and there's that 0G feeling. By the way, that doesn't stay forever. New changes, new pressure.
Right.
But I have that visual when I think of myself with my clients.
I love that.
But the ultimate goal is to, wherever you are today, and I usually work with very successful, competent people, it's to elevate them. And it's also to elevate them often, not necessarily in their technical work, but in their work with other people.
Right.
So if you maybe got to be a leader because you're really technically proficient or really great at investing or really great at whatever computer work you do, but now you have a team of people or an entire organization that you have to run. And that is a whole other skill. And there is no shame in not knowing how to do it, and we're not taught that. Now schools are trying to teach the social, the EQ work, but most of us adults were not taught that.
Yeah.
And so we don't know how to be effective team players. We don't know how to be effective leaders, and that's where I say teach, but as a coach, I lean on you and your expertise, and I bring it out on you. Yeah. Also, there's different ways to be successful. And we find the way that feels in alignment with you so you can move faster.
I find that managing people is the hardest skill that you will never stop learning. I've just from my experience watching and then and being led by certain people, but I'm thinking of one person in particular during my years in fashion. She was incredible, one of the best managers, and we'll talk about the nuances of that in a second, but she was always learning, and just admitting, being vulnerable, but also being a leader. I think it's really hard. Actually, one of my questions to you was, do you think emotional intelligence can be taught?
Yes.
Do you think the traits of a great leader are mostly inherent, or, well, of course they could be taught.
Well, so I would say emotional intelligence, it can always be taught, but I think what you're asking is, can you elevate your emotional intelligence?
Sure.
Can you go from like point A to point B? Can you be
Yes.
better? Can you be more emotionally intelligent?
Yes.
And I can 100% say you can. I think I even like, I know my EQ is a lot higher now than it was, 10 years ago or 5 years ago.
So it's a skill that can be...
Yeah, so it starts with really understanding yourself. And in my work, for example, we'll do a lot of assessments so that the person really understands.
I was going to ask, how do you assess someone's strength when they come to you?
A couple of ways.
And then areas of improvement, obviously.
Yeah. So we do a kind of a psychometric personality assessment. So we figure out, and there's depending on the goal of our work together, I will use different assessments.
Okay.
But also with leaders, if they work with a lot of people or anyone that they work with, I will usually do a 360 assessment, which means that they are giving me a list of usually about 10 people that I go and I speak to them for about 30 minutes each, and I pull together all the themes and I share it back with the executive.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I was not expecting you to say that.
Yeah, it's a really rich process. It's not a cheap process for the company or for the executive, but it's the most effective part of my work, because I do not go light with my feedback. I give it to them straight.
I was going to say, it feels brutal in the most vulnerable way.
Yeah, it's the hardest part of my job, and it's often the hardest day for me. I almost never will do it on Zoom. I will fly, I will take a train, I will find you, and I will like go and give it to you in person, because I also share a lot of the strengths and a lot of the good that people see in you, but I will tell you exactly the experience people are having with you.
I love how you get into it.
Yeah, well, the Soviet Union immigrant mindset in me is like, I give it to you straight, because...
So confrontation for you, while it is heavy, is it, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is it not super hard for you to
I'm a direct,
sit?
Yeah.
So that's a good part of your personality.
Yeah.
I would be sick to my stomach.
Yes, and I'll tell you why I'm sick to my stomach doing it. It's not because it's hard for me to be direct with people. So my personality is I'm very comfortable being direct. I also know that at the end of the day, that's why they're here with me. And I always come from a desire to help.
Right.
The reason I'm sick to my stomach is I actually have to do it right. So I get feedback from a lot of different people. And some of the feedback I get, that person is telling me feedback through a very biased lens. And it is my job to figure out if that is feedback that's worth giving, or if that is feedback that is so biased that it's going to be harmful for my leader to hear.
Right.
So that's the part that's so tricky. Is if I speak to 10 people and 5 people said the same thing, you are getting that feedback. If I speak to even a very senior, very important person, and they said something that nobody else said, I have to think, is it actually that person? Like, is that person's issue? Right.
And the feedback you do have to deliver that's hard, you have to figure out how you're going to package that.
Exactly.
So they don't shut down and you're able to help and build. Right.
And then
from there.
In the people I work with, again, they're very successful. And they have gotten very far in their life for a long time. So some of them will reject it.
I was going to ask.
Or spin it.
Right.
They will kind of like silver line it or spin it. And I will have to come back and be like, no. You don't get to skirt over this. We got to work on this.
So I was going to ask, I assume this is the case, do people get upset with you ever? Have they ever gotten upset with you?
Yes. So one of the things.
It's hard to get criticism, even constructive criticism, as a human.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very interesting because one of the things that I've realized doing this for 10 years is people are on their best behavior with me.
I would be. Maybe I am right now.
Not with me as a person, but with me in the role of a coach.
Yes.
People are on their best behavior with me. Not because I'm scary, but because they know that I'm seeing through. And I just started with him. He interviewed like 5 different coaches before he selected me. And he's a big deal executive. And he's really, one of the reasons we're working together is he's a perfectionist and he wants things right and he's very hard on his people. So when he interviewed me, I felt that too. I felt like he was going to be hard on me. Mm-hmm. But I stayed true to like my style. And when he then told me that he selected me out of all the coaches, he said, you cut straight through the bullshit and you went straight to like the jugular.
Yes.
Like and I feel like you'll do that for me, and that's why I chose you. He's like, I did not choose you because I think this is going to be like lovey-dovey and comfortable. I feel like you're going to help me get up to space when it's hard.
And I feel like a lot of these successful people do not want to waste their time. They want to get to the point. They want to make it happen. I mean, that's part of why.
Yeah, and they also want to feel like it's a big investment that it's going to pay off for them.
Right. Do you have mostly men, most women, mixed?
It's so mixed.
Okay.
Right now I have a lot of women, but the gentleman I just mentioned and a few other. I have a mix.
Okay.
I don't discriminate. I actually, it just depends on kind of what's happening in the moment.
Are you meeting with people all day, in person, Zoom?
Yeah, a combination.
Okay.
I love going into people's offices and working with them in their environment so I can really see the environment they sit in.
Yeah.
But that's a little trickier because I have more clients now than I've had when I was like starting out. So,
word of mouth? Do you market yourself?
At this point, it's mostly word of mouth, but I need to do a better job. I don't like to sell, so I just try to put thought leadership out there. Yeah. I just try to be of value to people and have them know me and know my style. And maybe when they have a need, they'll think of me. That's kind of how I think about marketing. That's probably not the best business choice, but...
Well, it's working well for you. Are they mostly in New York City? You're meeting with them? Okay.
A lot of people are in New York City, but I have clients in California. I have clients in Paris. Actually, one of my clients is in Paris, so she's an expat.
You should go visit her and just do a deep dive in
Exactly.
Paris.
I actually am going this week. I'm going in 2 days
to
Paris, but so I will see her, but I'm not going to see her, but yes.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Particularly in New York City, are there any common challenges that you're seeing across the board?
Oh, good question. I got one. People have a really hard time slowing down. And what I mean by that is the idea is that I'm there to help elevate you and help you achieve more and help you be more successful. But when it comes to leading or working with people, you kind of need to slow down in order to not later slow yourself down.
Burnout.
Not just burnout.
Okay.
People will rot. For example, we now can be emailing or chatting all day long. So people will feel that they need to respond right away.
Right.
So they will respond in a way that is just their unfiltered style. Maybe they won't even check in with what's going on with them. But they won't have an assessment of how that's going to feel to another person.
Right.
Or they won't come back around to a conversation. Right. So one of the things that I actually just suggested this to a client of mine yesterday was every day you need to think about the work you're doing and who needs to be looped into it, how, why, and who doesn't, and like how are you communicating with them? Because she is a get shit done person, so she is all business. So she'll shoot off a text or an email that is so direct and blunt, and she just sees it as being herself. But per the 360, that is not how people feel about her. She leaves
people reeling,
Really, and like she'll write it in a way where she doesn't realize that she's pointing blame. And
you're bringing back memories. Of
people
situations.
The people she works with are like, oh my God. And recovering for days, and she's on to the next thing.
Right.
So that's not helping her right now. You know, that's going to be a struggle. So I told her, I'm like, you need to figure out how to slow down. And by slow down, I don't mean like do less. I mean like create space.
Right.
It doesn't have to be long.
I used to have a boss that loved writing emails at 2, 3 in the morning, and that was that was a little, nerve-wracking at times. It never went away.
And then we end up responding to that energy.
Oh yeah.
And then it's just like a vicious cycle.
So I mean, a successful leader it's also creating a healthy energy for themselves so that they can put it out to their team because they take that energy on themselves.
Yeah.
Are there different challenges or way you speak with women clients than you do with men? Is it the same? Are they the same general issues, or are they different because of the gender aspect?
I am so honed in on the individual. I never think about it as a gender.
I like that answer.
If you just think about, take me, you said you must be comfortable with conflict and being direct.
Right.
Which I am, up to a point. That arguably is more of a male trait.
Sure. Generally.
Arguably.
Sure.
Right? So I will look through the gender lens from a perspective. So for example, if I have a very direct woman, she is going to unfortunately have that come up as her feedback in a way that a guy wouldn't. Like being overly direct from a guy, maybe we just have that expectation as a society, and it's put through an entire different lens.
Right.
But I am really honed in on who are you, what drives you, what are your core values, what are your strengths and weaknesses, how are you showing up, how are you communicating, and I really don't look at gender at all.
Yeah.
And I take into account also the culture you're working in, like the organizational culture, and how you then fit or don't fit in that as well.
Right.
I'm much more focused on the individual.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you can go to an AI. And they have those, and they're,
I'm sure.
I gotta say, they're impressively good. Some of them are really great, and some are horrible. But we're not far off from having really great AI coaches.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm trying to distinguish myself by being as human and as custom as I can be for my clients, because that is where the value will come.
Yeah, has the cultural landscape and the diversity of New York City, I mean, has that changed leadership styles in recent years?
Generations are. The next generation is coming up in the workplace.
Why? Explain
and
that.
they are, so Gen Z is demanding a very different leader.
Okay,
what
is that?
A very different leader. An empathetic leader, a leader that isn't just, I say you do, right? Like the younger generations have been encouraged in schools, in universities to challenge their teachers, to challenge their parents, to challenge each other.
Right.
So there isn't that like hierarchical mindset that a lot of prior generations have been expected to do and have done.
Right.
They're also a lot more connected, and they expect flexibility. And some of the older generations didn't grow up with that flexibility of like, you should, I mean, I would say that FaceTime culture is starting to go away, but I think especially in finance, which is one of the industries that I work a lot in, you do physically have to sit together in like a trading floor environment, and because things move so quickly. And there is an element of like still FaceTime culture, or like, no, you can't, you have to sit here and do the work, you know?
Right.
Even if you think about in schools, how we sat at desks facing the teacher, and now our kids can go and write and read and do their tests, like laying down on a rug, which boggles my mind, but that is an option for a child if they want to do it that way. So that's occurred in the school system, and that generation's coming up, and they're like, why are you expecting me to be in this rigid way? Because so that's one thing. And so those older generations, which are currently in a leadership position, by the way, they're not that old. Like it's millennials now that I'm coaching, you know. I'm not talking about baby boomers at this point. I can coach a baby boomer, but I think we both know that they kind of are set in their ways.
Right. So majority are millennials or younger.
What's a millennial now? Like, no, 40
I always forget. Millennials are
50-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and 30-year-olds is who I coach. So I would say like, Gen X and Gen X, millennials.
Yeah.
And what's the next generation after millennials?
I don't know. Where's the Google?
Anyway.
So that makes sense. I don't know why I was thinking
But generational is very interesting. It's very, very interesting. And I'm trying to stay with it for the next generations, because they're coming up and they're going to need me.
Sure.
And I don't want to be like
how do you stay relevant?
I mean, I just study. I just study like what they want, even if it feels so like different from the way I was brought up.
Yeah.
I also will say that it's really unfortunate because of COVID. A lot of the people that have come up in the workplace the past couple of years had to do it virtually from their homes.
I was going to ask, how has leadership styles changed post-COVID?
Yeah. So that's very tricky because remember, like in 3D, you can really learn, you can watch, you can observe behaviors, somebody can pull you aside and be like, listen, like don't do that, do that. It's gone in many, I mean, it's coming back now. People are really trying to get back into the office, but it's really unfortunate because the younger generations are having to learn the EQ and the cultural things in a completely different way, and some don't learn it, and then it's a real gap for them.
Yes.
So there's a lot more leaders are doing one-on-ones. It's like a part of many of the leaders' work is like a lot of one-on-ones, especially virtually. A lot of elevated EQ, really understanding who your people are.
Right.
The big work that I do is I try to help my leaders figure out what motivates their teams.
Right.
And most people are like, what do you mean, promotion and money? I'm like, nope, go deeper. Go deeper. Be like a true scientist of their psychology, which is, what I'm there to help them with, because everyone is motivated by different things. Some people are motivated by recognition.
Right.
And they define recognition sometimes by promotion, sometimes by being given a big visibility project.
Right.
Some people are motivated by affiliation, which means like the connection with another human being and getting to be placed on teams that they value or work with people that they appreciate.
Right.
Some people want to are motivated by actively learning all the time. So they don't want to do the same work over and over again. They want to be challenged and learn new things.
Right.
So you got to figure out, it's very difficult as a leader, but that's why I can help with that, is to figure out what motivates people.
That's the most important thing, because whatever motivates them makes them want to be there and do their best. And do you have these executives do, for lack of a better word, personality tests on their team?
Yeah, you make it sound so scary, like do personality tests.
I love a good personality test.
Yeah,
I love it.
I have a client who I've known for years now, and I worked with him in his leadership, and I did what's called the Enneagram for him.
I know the Enneagram. I love the Enneagram.
So we did his Enneagram, and he told me years ago, he said, I want you to do this for my team.
I think it's so important.
His team has turned over a couple of times. And he finally was like, I'm ready. And so we're doing the Enneagram for 12 of his team members. And so for those that don't know the Enneagram, it's a psychometric personality test assessment. It gives you one of 9 numbers, and then that number explains not necessarily your behavior as much as it goes to the core of what motivates you. Why are you the way you are?
Yeah.
And then it's very powerful. And so we are doing it for his entire department, which is 12 people.
Yes.
And based on that, we're actually going to, based on that and the need of the business, we're going to layer, right? Because right now it's him and he doesn't really have anyone.
Okay.
He's kind of, everyone reports up into him. Okay. So he's got these 2 people that he's elevating into leadership that are going to report to him, and we're going to figure out who should report to them based on the Enneagram.
I've been telling people about the Enneagram for years, and then I love it. And I tell people, and I'm like, I feel, which is probably not what you should do. I'm like, I feel like you're this number.
Be
and
careful.
I know you shouldn't do it, but I gotta say, Helen,
you're really good.
I'm pretty good. I should look into Enneagram coaching.
What number do you think I am?
8.
You got me.
This is on camera. This is amazing.
I try not to tell my clients my type because of the direct. And
I married an 8. 8s are incredible and are powerhouses and are amazing.
He's so.
Well, could be your
there's
wing.
different types of,
I know, I'm not.
Look at you with your wings.
I know.
You should do a thing on Enneagrams.
I love it. I just think it's so helpful, and there's so many resources that help what motivates you as a mom and what makes you fearful. It just
I
helps
haven't decided what number you are.
Oh, I like this.
Do you want to tell me?
I mean, do we have to talk about what I am on?
Of course.
I'm a 3.
I was going to say 2 or 3.
And 3, I'm a 3 with a 2 wing.
Yeah,
Everyone's probably like,
I was
what
thinking 2 or 3.
And
I know that we've lost people.
And you're that number when you read the positives and then the areas of improvement. I'm trying to be positive here. And when I read 3,
opportunities.
I tried so hard not to be a 3. I kept taking that test. I was like, I don't like this.
Why? Because
that's what you are.
the way the 3
but they're
is written up is bad.
Awful. But I will say there are sites that have a lens of like your faith, this and that, and there are ones that I really love when they're like, at your healthiest, you're this. At where you should start, take a look at here, where you're unhealthy. And I really like that because I've seen parts of my life in my 20s where I was not the healthiest, right? Because you're growing. Yeah. And I look back now and I'm like, I don't feel half those things that
Do you try to figure out where your kids are?
Of course.
They're not anything yet.
Well, they're too young. You don't want to put them in a role. You don't want to tell them
but
what they are.
But also they're not.
When are they?
They're not yet. They're not fully formed.
They're not fully formed.
You actually
I have ideas, but I'm not putting them in a box.
Yes, you can have ideas, but you actually will not be able to know. And that's actually one of the, I think, painful parts of being a parent is you think you know your child, and then they grow up,
right?
And they exist in the world, and
right. And the sweet spot is allowing them to change a million times. I know.
I have a story, if I may.
Tell.
One of my very wise friends 2 days ago said to me, we were walking down the street. It was really late at night. It was after Yom Kippur. We broke fast. Now we were walking home, and my kids just bolted down the street, like 6-year-old, 2 6-year-olds, and an 11-year-old at 11 at night.
Oh gosh.
Just bolted, ran after their friends, and that's not okay with me. I hold their hands still. And I was like power walking after them in high heels, and my friend who's walking behind me goes, Helen, control is an illusion. And I was like,
true.
I did not need that statement when they were
You're
running
like later.
away.
Yeah.
But I reflected on that later, and I was like, because he has older kids. He's got a son who's about to go to college.
They're so much more wiser than...
I know. He's got a son who's about to go to college. Yes. His youngest is Andrew's age. He's seen it.
Yeah.
And when he said that, I was like, ugh, why do you have to crush my soul?
It's so true, and I find that we're going back to parenting.
And as an 8, you know how hard it is to hear that statement.
It's the end. It's the word. It's a nightmare for you. But but especially when our kids, when we put them in a box, even in a positive way, like you shouldn't say this, but you're the oldest one. You should be doing this. Yeah. That puts pressure on our children to not make mistakes, this and that. So I do try to be aware of allowing them to also be their age. They're still all so little. Yes.
I will say, there's a whole movement that pressure is bad.
Oh.
So, of course, overdone, everything is bad.
Yeah.
Pressure is not always bad.
I totally
agree. Tell my clients, I'm like, you're stressed out?
Yeah.
Okay, let's use that.
Yes.
Let's use that.
Yes.
Like my son, you have pressure at school? Okay, let's use that.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's
we're
use
similar.
that energy to figure out how to get you better, how to grow you, how to make you. My biggest thing is if you're uncomfortable, good.
That's what I just told my middle son the other day. I said, being uncomfortable is a good thing. It means you're growing. Yeah. Feeling unsafe is a different conversation.
Yes, and
being uncomfortable
tricky
is
for them to figure out the difference.
I know. So we discuss it, but being uncomfortable doing something new is good for you.
Absolutely.
This is good. Feeling the pressure helps you rise. We're with you. This family is right alongside of yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, immigrant kid.
Yeah.
We didn't do comfortable.
Right. You plow through.
We didn't have time for that.
Yeah. Do you feel a daily pressure to uphold that legacy in everything you do?
Probably. I'm probably on a deep unconscious level.
Yeah.
I do.
And that's what drives you to keep going?
I'm never satisfied with myself. But I don't think it has to do with immigration. My grandma would tell me that she was that way. And she was like an only child, kind of was born a little bit before the war, so she was a kid in World War II. Okay. But I think I think there's a constant do better, and some people will say it must be horrible to constantly feel like you're not good enough. I think you have to figure out how to use it to the positive.
I agree. I mean, my Aaron is an entrepreneur, and I've seen he's so smart, and I see how he works through the problems and the ups and downs every day. It's about plowing through. That's the job done, right?
And again, like especially the leaders I work with, they don't, I'm not there to tell them like, oh, you can relax and just let it play out. Like you want to get better, we got to work, we got to make you uncomfortable, we got to show you your blind spots, which is a big Enneagram thing, as you know. Like the blind spots are really fun when you put up a mirror to people and they're like, oh.
Oh, it hurts.
Oh, yeah.
Which means it's the right number for them.
Yeah.
Right. I know.
Yeah.
I know. I like to focus on the positives. Just kidding. I get it. Both are important. We are going to end with a rapid fire. Some fun questions that I finish off.
I suck at these.
There's no wrong answer.
Okay.
No pressure.
All right. Let's do it.
And I'll try to keep my opinions to myself. I love adding to other people's thoughts.
I love that.
Subway or bus?
Subway.
Favorite place for coffee?
Hutch and Waldo, Upper East Side, 81st.
Yes.
Best coffee. I mean, not much place to sit because they just have the outdoor.
It's an Australian.
But their coffee is unbelievable.
It's an Australian company too, and it's got that vibe. I gotta go back.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What keeps you up at night?
Oh my goodness, it feels like everything recently. Mostly my kids, just like if I'm parenting them right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Us all. Favorite activity with kids?
Ooh, tennis.
Tennis. Very nice.
Love playing tennis with my kids.
Favorite spot for drinks?
I don't drink much, to be honest with you.
For a drink?
Somewhere, I don't have a specific place. Maybe you have one for me, but I think somewhere with like a really, really cool, there's a place that does jazz in the 70s on the East Side, and I don't remember the name of it.
We're gonna find it and go together.
Yeah, it's like cool and vibey, and it's got really nice decor. I'm really big into decor. I don't like bars like that just have no decor and just TVs.
Love
that really bothers me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not a dive bar girl.
No,
we got
I
it.
want like a velvet lounge type of look.
Got it. I'm gonna find
Don't
some
have
velvet.
the name. Let's find.
Okay, we're gonna find a velvet jazz bar in the 70s. Done. Shopping spot in New York City.
Just my favorite shopping is probably in like the Soho area, but I don't ever have time to do it
Just
anymore.
roaming around.
But I really enjoy going to the flea market on the West Side, the Anderson School one on Sundays.
Okay.
I just think it's really fun. You can find something unique.
I
You
love
can meet the
that.
vendors.
New York City, like a little gem.
Flea markets in general.
Love
like
it.
New York City flea markets.
What's your most challenging part of your day?
The truth?
Yes.
Bedtime with the kids.
You're not the first person.
And I'll
to
tell
say
you
that.
why. They're actually great. They go to sleep. They do a lot of their things on their own.
Yeah.
It's that I want to be done, but I also want to be fully present and like with each one.
It's hard.
And it's the problem is I'm putting too much pressure on myself to have it be perfect.
Yeah, you can't knock it out of the ballpark every single night.
Yeah, but you're also tired. And you're done, and you want some time for you.
Right.
So I think it's not necessarily like difficult to put them to sleep. They're great kids, so go to sleep.
Yeah.
But I often will get them to sleep on time and be like, I wasn't fully present.
You just summed up bedtime for parents as they're a little older for everyone perfectly. That is so true.
Yeah.
You like want to have the most meaningful 2-minute conversation with each so that you have time for yourself and you're tired and the hugs and that moment, which is not possible.
No.
Right. Every night.
No, but like if you do lay down with them, if you're mindful and you decide that you're going to lay down with each of them, you get such juicy stuff.
Oh, it's so good. I know.
And they want to keep going.
Oh, they want to keep going.
And with the twins, they're in the same room. So when I'm on the top bunk with Ben, and he's like giving me the full story, and then she starts commenting, and then she wants to have
and all of a sudden it's 11 o'clock at night.
So bad.
What is your go-to self-care routine? We'll end there.
Ooh, I'm very bad at self-care because I don't
Self-care
create the space.
could be the walk.
Oh, my self-care is going out with my girlfriends.
Okay,
Yeah, that's like
life-giving.
for sure my self-care.
I love that. That's a life-giving feeling.
Yes. Self and swimming.
Where do you swim?
So in the Long Island house,
That's where you
we can swim. That's like obviously when it's warm out.
Yeah.
I just love swimming. I love the water.
Yeah.
But for even just if I can get into a pool somewhere.
Okay, you love the pool.
Yeah, I do. I like to swim.
Yeah.
Because you're like, all your senses are kind of turned off.
Quieted. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear ya.
It's just movement.
Yeah. So nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Was a lot of
This was fun.
This was a blast.